to Channel 44. I'm Mercy Gashegu Sembatia to bring you this afternoon's news update. I'll be joined by Livingstone Kawesi for sign language interpretation and translation. We'll start with what's happening in Africa. Some unlikely fighters are strengthening the Somali government's arsenal in its long war against Al-Shabaab, one of Al-Qaeda's most successful affiliates, and which was behind a twin car explosion, bomb explosion in the capital Mogadishu last weekend that killed at least 120 people. Images of men in sarongs and flip-flops running about with guns are one of the most enduring stereotypes of conflict in Somalia. Footage on these bespattered fighters careering through smashed-up cities, firing wildly as they go, is shown again and again, much to the annoyance of Somalis who say this is not fair or accurate representation of their society. Somalis call these sarongs mawis. They usually come in muted colors, decorated with abstract designs originating in Indonesia. Many men use them as everyday wear, while others put them on to relax in the evenings or to recline more comfortably while chewing the narcotic cut. In Ethiopia, a surprise deal has been reached in the Ethiopian civil war, with both sides agreeing to halt their two-year conflict, which led thousands of deaths and warnings of famine. The African Union has called it a new dawn, according to the press. The agreement between the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan forces should allow aid deliveries to resume. Almost 90% of people in the northern Tigray region need food aid, according to the World Health Organization. About a third of the region's children are suffering from malnutrition. In Turkey, Turkey's president has said a deal to free up grain exports from Ukraine will consider
Turkey's role in the hard negotiations to get things moving again.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had discussed sending grain to African countries. The grain deal was brokered by the UN and Turkey in July, bringing to an end a 5-month Russian blockade of Ukraine ports that trapped millions of grain and sunflower oil and sent food prices soaring. The deal ends on the 19th of November, and those involved still have to agree on extending it. Russia has suspended support for grain exports, but agreed this week to restart its participation in the agreement. In Asia, North Korea has fired an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, but it failed mid-flight, according to the South Korean military. The ICBM launch, the North Korea's 7th this year, sparked an alert in Japan, but fell short, landing in the sea. Tensions are escalating amid fears the North will soon conduct a nuclear test. Yesterday, both Koreas fired missiles near each other's waters. The exchange saw the most number of missiles launched by North in a single day. North Korea's multiple launches come as the US and South Korea are staging their largest ever joint air drills, which Pyongyang has strongly criticized as aggressive and provocative. Today, North Korea fired a long-range missile at around 7:40 local time, according to a statement from South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff. A source confirmed. And still in Asia, it has been a confusing and nerve-wracking morning for people living in northern Japan. At 7:50, air raid alarms went off across Miyagi and Yamagata prefectures, and TV programs were interrupted to tell people to take shelter. The Japanese Coast Guard said a missile fired from North Korea was heading over Japan. The Japan and North Korea missiles have crossed Japan before, and one did last month, but never had this far south. The missile that was launched this morning never made it to Japan's airspace, according to South Korean military forces. It failed mid-flight and fell back to Earth, splashing down the Sea of Japan. And on climate, glaciers across the globe, including the last ones in Africa, will be unavoidably lost by 2050 due to climate change, according to a report of the United Nations. A third of glaciers located in UN World Heritage sites will melt within 3 decades, according to a UNESCO report. Mount Kilimanjaro's last glaciers will vanish as glaciers in the Alps and Yosemite National Park in the U.S. They will melt regardless of the world's action to combat climate change, according to authors. The report, which makes projections based on satellite data, comes as world leaders prepare to meet in Egypt for next week's COP27 climate change conference. And finally, U.S. President Joe Biden has warned any candidates who refuse to accept defeat in next week's midterm elections could set the nation on the path to chaos. He also urged Americans to unite in opposition to political violence in the vote on 8th of November. Mr. Biden, a Democrat, said former President Donald Trump and his supporters were peddling lies of conspiracy and malice. Republicans hit back that Mr. Biden was seeking to divide and deflect. Control of both chambers of Congress and key state governorships are hanging in the balance in the next week's elections. Most forecasts suggest Republicans will win control of the House of Representatives, while the Senate could go either way. Mr. Biden spoke in nationally televised remarks on last evening at Washington, D.C.'s Union Station, just a few streets from where Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol last year in an attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Well, that brings us to the end of this afternoon's international news update. Thank you for watching Channel 44. I remind you of the Karamoja cry. We are salvaging the situation in Karamoja permanently by plowing, planting, and producing for the people in Karamoja. Join us once again. You've done great. Thank you so much. However, the need is still great. Send your seed to the numbers that will be available during the services, like the lunch hour program that is coming up next with Pastor Jessica, or you can bring your seed here to the Miracle Center Cathedral at the reception, or you can bring it during the services. It will be greatly acknowledged and you'll be tremendously blessed. God bless you. Enjoy your afternoon and enjoy the Marriage Now program with Pastor Jessica Kayanja.